Welcome to PolkaWorld Interview. This is Kristen. In this episode, we are going to talk about Mangata, a easy, cheap, and secure decentralized swap. No gas fees, no slippage, and more rewards. So let's dive deep together. Welcome, Tommi, to PolkaWorld Interview.
Hey, thank you for the invitation.
So what made you first interested in the world of crypto, and how did you land in DeFi and Mangata?
Yeah, so I always had a technological background. I've always been a programmer since a kid. I love to build technology and I love to build things. And in Austria, I had two jobs so far. I had both were 6 years and 7 years. So usually I like to stay with an organization and make it grow and just help add new people to the organization and help them learn. So in my previous job, I was the CTO, the Chief Technological Officer. It was an organization of about, let's say, 200 people working there and over 1,000 volunteers. So it's a volunteer-driven organization. It's a complex structure if you provide technology to them, because everyone wants to do their own thing and you cannot really give them orders on what to do with the devices. So it's a interesting environment. And yeah, I'm always drawn to communities and jobs where the community plays a great role. So I think this is also why I'm very interested in crypto, because it gives everyone a chance to participate and influence the whole thing, and it makes it also much more interesting. Yeah, how did I land in crypto and with Mangata? So it was the bull market in 2021. And I've been active in crypto since 2017, but I've sort of been sleeping through the bear winter. And when the bull market came, I became a little bit of FOMO. I became a little bit of panic of, oh no, I did sleep during the bear winter. Why did I not take the time to look around and invest? And so previously, I only held Bitcoin and ETH and a little bit of other tokens, but I started to look around. And I looked at the top 20 projects or so and researched all of them. And the funny thing is, Polkadot didn't make any sense to me initially. I read it and I said, I don't get it. Why would you do this? And then I read it again. And when I read it the third time, so every few weeks I was looking at it again, and the third time it clicked. And I was thinking, oh, this makes so much sense. If you have all those chains, they can have a competition on who is providing the same service in the best quality, and it removes all those problems for the relay chain. And I was thinking and thinking, and I couldn't sleep for 2 nights. My brain was just rewiring and thinking about all the new possibilities that are becoming possible in Polkadot. And so I became engaged and started this YouTube channel, Alice and Bob, which is also why I think it's very great that you're building something like PolkaWorld, because you do interviews, you do roundups. So this is really important for the community and the ecosystem. Yeah, and then shortly after, Chris from Mangata approached me. He saw the work that I was doing and wanted me to help promote Mangata.
Oh, very, very interesting. And let's move to our first topic. Personally, I'm very interested in this part because one of the unique feature of Mangata is gasless swaps. And actually, I checked. I asked my developer friend to check your code a little bit, but I still didn't figure out, how this gasless swap, happens. How do you guys make it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you break down? Yeah. Can you break down, how you made it?
Yeah, sure. So why would you want gasless swaps? As a trader, when you trade tokens, you usually have 3 components to your price. You have the gas that you pay to the network, and this is intended to prevent spam attacks and to fund the validators. Then you have the exchange commission. It's 0.3% usually that you pay. And usually on the bigger networks, there's also minor extractable value or maximum extractable values. So nodes are stealing a little bit of the trade you're making. They're finding a way to trick you into paying more. So, and we want to remove those components that make it difficult for you to trade. So MEV makes it difficult for you to trade because it just makes it more expensive. And to your question, gasless swaps, it is a fee component that is paid to the network, while the exchange commission is paid to the DEX. Mm-hmm. But since Mangata is the DEX and the network at the same time, we can optimize the cost. And we want to build it in a way that the cost optimizes to be just a percentage fee of your trade volume. If you trade on Ethereum and you have a busy day, the gas fees can become $5, $50. At one time, I performed a swap for $300, and it was super, super, super expensive. It was just possible in the bull market because there were some gains, but you cannot, no regular person can afford this regularly. So we have to find a way to remove this unpredictable cost. Okay, how do we do it? Gas fee is usually necessary as a spam prevention. So you don't want a million requests at the same time on the network. And so you introduce a gas fee and you say, every time someone makes a transaction, it costs you a little bit. And so it becomes prohibitive. You cannot attack the network because it is too costly. Okay, so there is a certain value that you need as the spam prevention. Now, if, and it's usually just a few cents or maybe even less, depends. So if your trade volume is bigger, so if your exchange commission, the fee that you pay to the exchange is bigger than the price for the spam prevention, the swap has a spam prevention in the exchange commission itself, because it is not affordable to spam the network if you're already paying more for the exchange commission. So since Mangata is a chain and it's customizable and it can update its rule depending on the situation, we look at the situation, and if the exchange commission is bigger than the swap fee, we say you don't have to pay the gas fee because the network doesn't need it. It's not needed for the spam prevention. Now, there are special cases like, what if the exchange commission is lower? And there we found an easy solution. We can use a token lockup. So some amount of tokens, at the moment it would be 50 MGX, for example, it would be locked up for 24 hours. And then you can release it and get it back again. Yeah. So you don't have to pay a gas. In the worst case, you just pay a little bit of a lockup and then you get it back.
Still need time to sink in. Okay. And on Mangata DEX chain, there are assets like DOT and the parachain tokens like Akala, Glimmer, etc., and the ERC tokens from your Ethereum chain. And instead of just staking the native token like in other networks, all these tokens could be staked and get the relevant rewards. Where does this part of reward come from? How did you select tokens?
Yeah. So this is another type of one problem that we want to solve. So when it comes to decentralized finance, everything is about capital efficiency, which just means you want to pay less or you want to get more. So if, for example, if you have gasless swaps, it just means you pay less. When it comes to staking, or let's say a DEX in general, what you want to have is capital efficiency. So you want to have a good exchange rate. You don't want to pay too much when you exchange it. And the general DEX, usually the price moves the more you pay. So you want to have very deep liquidity. You want to have a lot of liquidity in the exchange so that the price doesn't move too quickly. But now, if you want to secure the network and you stake on the network level, it takes tokens and it locks them up. So if you lock up the tokens, they cannot be liquid. They reduce the liquidity of the whole ecosystem. And so you would get worse prices. So the founders of Mangata have been thinking about, can we find a way to not lock up the tokens, but to keep them liquid? And the solution is actually very elegant. So instead of locking up the native token, you can take the LP tokens, which represent a share of your liquidity in the network, and you stake the LP tokens. So they can be used as the collateral and secure the network. The network gets secured by combinations of the native token of the exchange, MGX, and this token is paired to another token. So this can be ACA, this can be Glimmer, or it can be stable coins, anything. And so when the liquidity is whitelisted, it can be used to secure the network. And this is called proof of liquidity. It gives a second use case to your liquidity. So as a liquidity provider, you're not only earning from the liquidity provider fees and maybe liquidity mining rewards, but you can also decide to put it into proof of liquidity and get a new revenue stream for your liquidity. So we're calling it stake once, earn twice.
Every token listed on Mangata should pairs to MGX, right? And which creates a base layer. So what new types of application become possible when creating a asset layer that has MGA as tokenized liquidity?
Yeah, so we're calling this a base layer of liquidity. Basically, when you have an exchange, so everyone can create a liquidity pool because some traders want to trade, let's say, DOT to the dollar directly, or DOT to the Oak network token. So this is what traders want, but some traders maybe want to trade the Oak token to the stablecoin. So because traders have different choices and preferences, everyone can create a liquidity pool. But since if you have a lot of liquidity pools, you get less liquidity on each pool. There also sort of needs to be incentive to have less liquidity pools. It would make the liquidity pools deeper and create more capital efficiency. So what you can do is you can make initiatives to incentivize listing against one token, the DEX token. And if you have a lot of liquidity pools that all go against the DEX tokens, you have very short trading paths because you can always trade your asset in 2 steps. So let's say you want to have Glimmer and you want to swap it to ACA. You would swap Glimmer for the Mangata token and then from the Mangata token to ACA. And so you have a very short route. You have a very liquid and deep route, and it creates good prices for you. So if every pair has the primary token paired against the Mangata token, it sort of creates very capital efficient, deep base layer of liquidity, what we are calling it. And so in my perspective, it's not so much about the applications that you build on top, but about the capital efficiency that you're creating. But if you want to think about applications, first of all, you have proof of liquidity. So if you have tokens paired against MGA, one application of your liquidity is that you can have stake once, earn twice. And another thing that also becomes possible in the future is that, so we're currently thinking about this. It is not decided and will also be a discussion in the community, but you could use your liquidity in voting. So in governance of the network. Liquidity providers are very important stakeholders on an exchange. So it sounds a little bit weird if you only can vote on governance decisions with your native token, because liquidity providers have LP tokens. And the more LP tokens you have, the more liquid and capital efficient the exchanges. So if you would want to have a voting power on the network, you would have to keep the native token and you wouldn't keep it liquid. So this is also a discussion that we're having. If you can vote with your liquidity, you are an important stakeholder of the community and of the ecosystem. You should have the power to.
Algorithm by burn is a novel mechanism that enables a crypto project to maintain a capital supply. Could you show us the motivation behind the mechanism and explain to us the exact mechanism?
Yeah, sure. So algorithmic bind burn. You have a lot of different tokenomics. So ways that you can design the economics of a token. And One of the big questions usually is, do you have a hard cap? So is there a limit in the amount of tokens? Is it inflationary? So does it always go up, or is it deflationary? Does it always go down? And there are different advantages and disadvantages to how you design the tokenomics. For Mangata, the design we came up with is a hard capped supply, because it gives a lot of predictability to token holders. They know exactly that there will be an exact limit to the tokens. For example, this allows you to calculate the fully diluted value. So you can look into the future and you can say in 4 years or in 5 years, the token cap will be reached, and you know there will not be more inflation that might be threatening your value. But at the same time, an exchange always wants to give out incentives. So you want to give out liquidity mining incentives. You need to reward the nodes that are creating blocks for the network. So there is a need for inflation, but at the same time, we would like to have a design where we have a hard cap. Now, the answer to this is algorithmic buy and burn. And what it means is that with every swap, with every transaction on the exchange, a tiny bit of the value is taken, and the native token is bought on the exchange and immediately burned. It's 0.05% of the exchange volume. So it's a small amount, but it in the long term, it will be enough to burn enough tokens to, in the future, be able to create new incentives. At the same time, it also connects the success of the exchange with the success of the token. So as a token holder, if you're holding the token and there is a capped supply and also a continuous demand on the volume to burn more tokens. So it also works by connecting the success of the exchange with the success of the token and make sure that this stakeholder group is happy.
Okay. DeFi starts on Ethereum in 2019 and has been going through a series of involvement since then. In PolkaWorld, there are Zenlink, Sladder Swap. So in this competing market, how to bootstrap liquidity?
This is the question everyone is asking. I think the answer is fairly simple. You need to have a winning design. I think you need to have other things too. Of course, you need good marketing and you need a successful ecosystem. But in the end, it all comes down to, do you have a successful and competitive design? So DeFi is now at a stage where a lot of people are understanding the basic mechanism of the automated market maker. And more people are learning it every day. But this is just the beginning. This is just the bridgehead into this new territory. And now there is so much to explore in the possibilities of how you can do automated market makers, how you can increase capital efficiency. And we are also just scratching the surface of how can we build chains in a way that they're more deeply integrated with the DeFi applications. So gasless swaps is one idea of this, or proof of liquidity is one idea of this, of where you integrate the chain with the application itself. And I think what it takes is you look at the market, you look at the actual problems that are there on the market, and then you find solutions. And if you find a lot of those solutions, you find ways of how you can elegantly combine them into an elegant solution that increases capital efficiency, or it helps users in a way. I think user friendliness is very important. So we also try to be very user friendly on the front end side, the front end that we are building. Yes, and we're also investing a lot into community development and business development.
After FTX fallout, I found out that people are not leaving the centralized exchange and move to DEX. Instead, they're just transfer all their assets to another centralized exchange. Why is that? What is missing before the DEX become the first choices of the massive users?
Yeah, I like this question. I think it's, on one level, it's fairly easy. Centralized exchanges mostly are far easier to use than decentralized exchanges. you just register and you put in your credit card or you send your money. I mean, there's one complication. You would have to do the KYC and identify yourself. But once that is done, you send money, you trade it, and you're done. Yeah, and you can even remove it from the exchange. Decentralized exchanges, you first have to understand what is happening. Can I trust it? Why do I need to install a wallet? Am I doing this right? Why do I have to approve this? So it's very complex for newbies. And I think the most important trend we will have to see is that it becomes much, much, much more user-friendly. I think front-end applications and back-end applications, so the chain itself is the back-end application, but front-end applications will also play a crucial role. So the applications that are provided by teams or that maybe are decentralized, but they need to be very user-friendly, maybe provide fiat on-ramps, explain everything in an easy way. I think this is the most important thing. But I'm very confident that we are making this happen because Web3 is just spreading. It's a little bit similar to how in the beginning on phones, when you had the internet, it was like a different protocol and that didn't look very good and no one wanted to use internet on the phone because it was just not a good experience. But by today, more people are using the internet on the phone than on the computer because it just got so much more user-friendly and it even was driving the innovation. And I think we will see the same in Web3, where Web3 is driving the innovation. And in a few years, more people will use finance in Web3 than in Web2 or with just classical banks. I think only the banks will survive that adapt quickly enough to Web3.
I believe in this firmly as well. From my perspective, I think there's a way to go. Maybe it still took us, a few years to do a lot of work, because the difference between the Web3 and Web2 is more about the mindset of people. People now, they're using centralized exchange. They'll get used that somebody would guarantee their assets. If some problem happens, even though they lost their assets, and in the end they have someone to blame. But in the DEX, they have to fully control their asset and fully responsible for their asset. There's a transmit of their mindset. I think firstly, we need the infrastructure to be more perfect, and also it's a way that people get used to the change.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I think in the future we will also have much more customer support, even in Web3, because when you have the possibility to build decentralized autonomous organizations, there is a way to have people on the payroll that are serving the ecosystem. If you provide value, it can be compensated by value. And today DAOs have a little bit of a bad reputation, I think, because every community can call itself a DAO or every company can call itself a DAO. But I think in the future, this is also just scratching the surface. And in the future, I think we will have much more real DAOs who are creating value for people, who are serving people and get compensated. And so I think banks in the future will be much more like DAOs, where there is a backend application running, but today when you have a bank, it's just intransparent what is happening. In the future, it will be transparent what is happening, and the bank will be like the front-end application that is serving you.
We've seen from your announcement that there's a lot of partnership, and could you share some partnership, the partnership that you wanted to highlight or to share?
Yeah, sure. So at the time when we record the interview, there are 3 channels open on Mangata X, and we have a few in the pipeline. So we started out our journey by opening a channel to Oak Network. They are an on-chain automation provider. So I think this is a super important component for Web3, is that stuff can happen automatically on-chain without anyone sending a transaction to the chain. So it increases the autonomy of the blockchain ecosystem. So I think Oak is super important because what can they do? They can do something like once every day a certain transaction is being sent, or if a price goes over a limit or under a limit, you send a transaction. I think in the future it will be possible to do stop loss or take profit orders that are fully on chain without any Oracle intervention or something. So this is Oak Network. It's a very nice partnership. Then we have bootstrapped also the Imbue network token. This is decentralized crowdfunding. So a little bit similar to Kickstarter, but in the Web3 space. And they are building a product that allows you to propose to build something to the community. And then people can sort of contribute if they want that it happens, but it only gets paid if they actually deliver. So I think the idea is also to learn from the pains in the past where a lot of projects made promises and then didn't hold the promises. And so here the idea is to only pay a team when they are actually delivering. And it can be milestone based and so on. And the third open channel that we're currently having is with Bifrost Network. They are also very much about capital efficiency. So they're building mostly liquid staking products. For example, liquid staked KSM, liquid staked Mover, liquid staked BNC. And so it allows you to stake a token and then get a derivative. And for example, use it in liquidity provision in DeFi. So this reduces the complexity of users having to think about all the complexities of staking and where should I stake and what should I do. Instead, they can buy the liquid stake derivative and it's good. It's handled for them. I think this is also very important. And in the future, we're looking to launch on Polkadot. And so we're also looking for partnerships in the Polkadot space, not only in the Kusama space. And I think in the future, we will also, once our Ethereum bridge is coming, we will reach out to Ethereum projects to also build relationships there. And it's actually a very enjoyable experience. So last year I had the role of marketing and business development. Now I'm focusing on business development and community building. But business development is a really interesting job because you can connect with so many people, and over time you have sort of this connections and a little bit of friendships. And when there is a problem rising up, oh, I can talk to this person because they know how to solve this, or they would help them. So I think this is also sort of building the underlying network of the whole ecosystem. It's not only what is happening on chain, but how are people connecting and building something together.
Yeah, amazing. How do you wrap up your 2022 and in one sentence?
A lot of stuff that makes us ready for the future. That's the sentence.
It means a lot. Can you share us with your New Year's resolution of 2023?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. 2023 will be all about building more channels, launching more tokens, and launching on Polkadot. We are very short ahead of releasing our final features that make us ready for Polkadot. So we always said we only go for Polkadot when we have fulfilled all our core promises. Gas swaps, proof of liquidity, algorithmic buy and burn, permissionless pool creation, and so on. So I think in this quarter, or latest until the half of the year, we have released all of the features. We want to go for Polkadot. And now that everything is sort of landing and in place, it's all about now building the connections, opening channels, getting more tokens in, and sort of get the thing running.
In the end, do you have something that you would like to add or remark?
Maybe. So what I would like to share is that I think Polkadot is going to be one of the crucial ecosystems in the future. I think, for example, Cosmos, Avalanche are also primed to be very successful. And I think most people, even in Polkadot, haven't realized how deep this actually is going to go. There is a very excellent blog post from Robert Habermeyer that I can suggest. It's called Block Space over Blockchains, I think. and it introduces the idea of block space. So I can suggest to everyone to research about the topic of block space, because it will give you a much deeper understanding of what the whole crypto community is building and where the actual value is being created. And it gives you a much better sense of looking at things and understanding where there's value and where not.
Great. And thank you so much. I think that's all for our today's interview, and very happy. It was a great time. Hope our community loves your project, and looking forward more cooperations in the future.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation. And I love to see more from PolkaWorld. It's a really big channel with a lot of videos and good content.